There is a moment that changes everything between a man and a woman. It is not a conversation, it is not a confession, it is not an argument. It is the moment you stop giving her your attention, not out of anger, not out of revenge, not because someone told you to play a game, but because something inside you quietly shifted. You decided your energy belongs to you first. And in that single silent decision, something inside her breaks open that she will never willingly admit to you or to herself. Most men will never understand what actually happens in a woman's psychology when your presence disappears. They think she moves on. They think she forgets. They think silence is invisible. But the truth is far more intense than that. Your silence activates something ancient inside her, something she cannot reason with, something she cannot control, something that rewrites how she sees you, how she sees herself, and how she experiences the entire dynamic between you. What you are about to hear is not opinion. It is the psychological reality most men are never taught, and understanding it will change the way you move through every relationship for the rest of your life. If this is the kind of content that shifts how you see yourself and the world around you, subscribe now so you never miss a breakdown like this. Drop a like to help other men find this message, and leave a comment telling me what you have experienced when you went silent. When you have been showing up for a woman consistently, texting her first, checking in, making effort, being emotionally present, her brain does something most men never consider. It adapts. It builds an internal rhythm around your presence. Your attention becomes part of her emotional environment, not as a luxury, but as a baseline signal her nervous system quietly depends on. She does not consciously decide to depend on it. Her brain simply learns the pattern and treats it as stable. And when something stable disappears without warning, the brain does not process it calmly. It processes it as a disruption. This is not metaphor. This is how the human nervous system works. Women navigate emotional reality with a precision most men underestimate. They read micro shifts in tone, energy, timing, and consistency. They feel when something changes before they can explain what changed. And when your attention has been a reliable constant in her world, the moment it vanishes, her internal alarm system activates. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. She feels something is off before she can name what it is. And that unnamed tension is far more powerful than any words you could have spoken. Her brain enters a state of involuntary evaluation. She starts scanning. She replays your last conversation. She rereads your most recent messages looking for signs she might have missed. She analyzes your tone, your timing, your energy. She asks herself whether something shifted and whether she caused it. This is not obsession. This is her psychology doing exactly what it was designed to do, detect relational change and respond to it. What most men fail to realize is that this process is not a choice she makes. It is automatic. The same way your body flinches before you consciously register a threat, her emotional system responds to the absence of your attention before her rational mind catches up. She does not sit down and decide to think about you. She finds herself thinking about you. She does not choose to feel unsettled. The unsettled feeling arrives on its own, uninvited and persistent. And here is where the real shift begins. The discomfort she feels is not because she misses your messages or your compliments. It is because the emotional rhythm she calibrated her sense of security around has been broken. You were a signal in her world that said things are stable, things are predictable, someone is choosing me. When that signal goes dark, she does not just lose your attention, she loses the certainty that came with it. And certainty for a woman is not a small thing. It is the emotional foundation she builds her confidence, her composure, and her sense of control upon. This is why your silence is never just silence to her. It is a psychological event. It forces her brain into a mode it was not prepared for. She has to reevaluate where she stands with you, and that reevaluation opens doors she thought were locked, doors to feelings she suppressed, doors to questions she avoided, doors to a vulnerability she convinced herself she did not have. None of this requires you to say a single word. Your absence speaks with a volume your presence never could. And her brain, no matter how composed she appears on the outside, is listening to every second of it. When you were consistently available to her, she lived inside an invisible structure of emotional safety. She knew you were interested. She knew you would reach out. She knew that no matter how little she gave, your energy would keep flowing in her direction. That certainty was not something she thought about consciously. It was something she felt. It was the quiet hum of assurance running beneath every interaction, telling her she was secure, she was wanted, she was in control. And inside that certainty, something dangerous happened. She stopped feeling, not in a dramatic way, in a slow, subtle way. The kind of emotional numbness that settles in when there is no risk, no tension, no possibility of loss. She did not need to wonder about you because you never gave her a reason to wonder. She did not need to invest because your investment covered the gap. She did not need to fear losing you because every action you took quietly promised her you were not going anywhere. And so she drifted, not away from you exactly, but away from the emotional weight of what you meant to her. She floated in comfort, and comfort, when it becomes too predictable, kills attraction at the root. But the moment you go silent, that entire architecture collapses. The certainty she built her emotional posture on vanishes overnight. And what replaces it is not peace. It is a restless, unnamed anxiety that wraps itself around every thought she has about you. She does not know where she stands anymore. She does not know if you are upset, if you are bored, if you have moved on, or if someone else now holds the attention she once received without effort. Each possibility carries its own specific sting, but all of them share one devastating commonality. They strip away the one thing she relied on most, the feeling that she was in control of the dynamic. This is where the spiral begins, and it rarely looks the way men imagine. She does not call you crying. She does not send paragraphs of emotion. The spiral is internal, quiet, almost invisible from the outside. It is the way she picks up her phone hoping to see your name and feels a hollow sting when she does not. It is the way she becomes irritable without understanding why. It is the way she replays a moment from weeks ago and wonders if that was the turning point. It is the way she tells herself she does not care and then catches herself thinking about you again 10 minutes later. The spiral is not dramatic. It is persistent. And that persistence is what makes it so psychologically powerful. What she is truly spiraling over is not your absence in a literal sense. It is what your absence means. It means she might not matter to you the way she assumed. It means her position in your world is not as secure as she believed. It means you are capable of walking away, and that capability terrifies a part of her she does not like to acknowledge. Because beneath the composure, beneath the confidence, beneath the carefully maintained exterior, there is a truth she has been avoiding since the moment you started pulling away. She cared. She cared more than she showed. She cared more than she admitted. She cared more than her pride allowed her to express. And now, in the absence of your attention, that truth is no longer something she can push to the side. It is sitting in the center of her chest, demanding to be felt, and she has no idea what to do with it. There is something about a man's silence that functions like a mirror, and not the kind she can turn away from. When you were present, when your effort was consistent and your attention was flowing, she never had to examine her own reflection in the dynamic. Your energy filled the space so completely that her lack of effort was never exposed. Your consistency covered for her inconsistency. Your pursuit disguised her passivity. Your emotional generosity masked the fact that she was giving almost nothing in return. She never had to see it because you never created the conditions for that truth to surface. But the moment you go silent, the mirror appears. And what it shows her is not what she expected. She begins to see how she responded to your effort, not in the story she told herself, but in reality. The short replies, the delayed responses, the conversation she half participated in, the moments she dismissed your vulnerability because she felt too comfortable to match it, the times she took your loyalty as a given rather than something earned and reciprocated. In your presence, she could rationalize all of it. She could tell herself she was just busy, just independent, just not the type to be overly expressive. But in your absence, those rationalizations fall apart. The mirror does not accept excuses. It only reflects what was. This confrontation with her own behavior does not arrive gently. It comes wrapped in resistance. Her ego fights it immediately. She wants to frame your silence as the problem. She wants to tell herself that you are being cold, that you are playing games, that you are the one who changed. Blaming you is easier than examining herself. And for a while, that blame might hold, but it does not last. Because every quiet hour that passes without your presence chips away at the defense she built around her self-image. And eventually, the reflection becomes too clear to deny. She starts to see the imbalance, not as a theory or an accusation from someone else, but as a lived pattern she participated in. She begins to understand that you did not pull away without reason. You pulled away because the dynamic was no longer sustainable. You pulled away because you were the only one building. You pulled away because your self-respect finally outgrew your willingness to accept less than you deserved. And that realization does not make her angry, at least not for long. It makes her uncomfortable in a far deeper way. It makes her confront the gap between the woman she believes herself to be and the woman she actually was in the relationship. This is the mirror effect. It does not punish, it does not accuse, it simply reveals. And what it reveals is often the most uncomfortable truth a person can face, that they were not as good to someone as they believed they were, that they had something valuable and treated it carelessly, that the man they assumed would always stay was actually the man who had every reason to leave. She may never say this out loud. She may never admit it in words, but she feels it. She feels it in the way her confidence around you has shifted. She feels it in the way she second-guesses how she treated you. She feels it in the way she now wonders whether she still has a place in your world. Your silence did not create this truth. It only removed the noise that was hiding it. And now that she sees it, she cannot look away. The mirror does not close when you want it to. It stays open as long as the silence lasts. Something shifts once the discomfort settles deep enough. Once the mirror has done its work and the certainty has fully collapsed, she enters a phase most men never get to witness because they break their silence too soon. She begins to chase, not loudly, not obviously. Women rarely pursue in ways that are easy to identify, but the internal shift is unmistakable once you understand what to look for. Her emotional posture changes from passive to active. The woman who once waited for you to initiate now feels the pull to re-enter your world, not because she decided to, but because her psychology demands it. This is where a fundamental principle of human bonding reveals itself. People do not attach deeply to those who give them attention. They attach to those they give attention to. When she was receiving your effort, she felt comfortable, but not necessarily connected. Now that she is the one thinking about you, wondering about you, investing mental and emotional energy into the question of where you went and whether you are coming back, her feelings begin to deepen in a way they never could when she was simply being pursued. The behavior starts small. She views your social media more frequently. She posts things she hopes you will notice. She interacts with something you shared after weeks of silence on her end. She finds a reason to send a message that appears casual but carries an undercurrent of intention. She asks a mutual friend about you, not directly, but in a way that reveals she has been thinking about your absence. She waits for you to watch her story and feels a quiet sting when you do not. Each of these actions might look insignificant on the surface, but psychologically, they represent a massive reversal. She has moved from the seat of the one being pursued to the seat of the one doing the pursuing. And that transition changes everything about how she feels toward you. What amplifies this even further is what your continued silence communicates during this phase. Every day you do not respond, every moment you do not react, every opportunity you do not take to re-engage, it sends a message louder than anything you could say. It tells her you are not desperate. It tells her you are not waiting by your phone. It tells her your world continued moving without her in it. And these realizations do not push her away. They pull her closer, because women are not attracted to men who orbit them. They are drawn to men whose lives are full enough that their absence is a real possibility. She is no longer evaluating whether she likes you. She is now confronting the fear that she may have already lost you. And that fear activates a kind of emotional urgency that comfort never could. Interest becomes curiosity. Curiosity becomes preoccupation. Preoccupation becomes longing. Longing becomes the kind of emotional investment that bonds a woman to a man far more deeply than months of one-sided attention ever would. The man who understands this does not break his silence out of anxiety. He does not rush back to reassure her. He does not interpret her subtle signals as an invitation to resume chasing. He recognizes that her pursuit, however quiet it may be, is the natural consequence of a man who finally chose himself, and he lets that process unfold without interfering, because the moment she starts chasing the connection she once dismissed, she is no longer taking him for granted. She is earning her way back, and that is the only foundation on which genuine respect and deep attraction can be built. There is a cruel paradox buried in human psychology. The harder you try to show someone your worth, the less they see it. And the moment you stop trying altogether, your value becomes undeniable. This is not a flaw in her perception. It is a flaw in how the human mind processes abundance. When your attention was freely given, it carried no weight. When your effort was constant, it became invisible. When your loyalty was guaranteed, it stopped feeling like something earned and started feeling like something owed. She did not disrespect you intentionally. She simply became blind to what was always available. But in your absence, a strange clarity takes hold. She begins to remember things she overlooked when you were present. The way you listened when no one else did. The way you showed up without being asked. The way you held space for her emotions without making it about yourself. The steadiness you carried, the patience you offered, the quiet strength you demonstrated simply by being consistent in a world full of men who disappear the moment things require effort. These memories do not surface gently. They arrive with weight, with sting, with the uncomfortable recognition that she had something rare and treated it as ordinary. This is where the scarcity principle reaches its deepest emotional impact. Your qualities have not changed. You are the same man you were when she took you for granted, but her ability to perceive those qualities has transformed entirely, because the lens she is now looking through is not abundance. It is loss, and loss sharpens everything. It makes warmth feel warmer. It makes loyalty feel rarer. It makes the memory of someone's presence ache in a way their actual presence never did. She starts to compare, not consciously at first, but inevitably. She measures other men against the standard you set, and they fall short in ways she did not expect. The attention she receives from others feels hollow because it lacks the depth yours carried. The conversation she has feels shallow because they lack the substance you brought. The interest she attracts feels generic because it lacks the specificity of someone who truly knew her. And in that comparison, your value does not just become visible, it becomes towering. What makes this realization so powerful is that you did nothing to cause it. You did not send a speech about your worth. You did not list your qualities. You did not beg her to see what she had. You simply left, and your leaving did what your staying never could. It forced her to feel the full weight of your absence and to understand through that weight exactly how much your presence meant. This is the moment admiration and regret merge into a single emotional experience. She admires the man you are, the discipline, the self-respect, the quiet power of a man who can walk away without destruction, and she regrets the way she treated what you offered, the carelessness, the passivity, the assumption that you would always remain no matter how little she gave. That combination of admiration and regret is one of the most intense emotional states a woman can experience, and it does not fade quickly, because once she sees your value through the lens of loss, she cannot unsee it. That image stays, it lingers, it becomes the standard against which every future connection is measured. Everything you have heard until now has been about what happens inside her when you stop giving her your attention. But here is the truth that sits beneath all of it, the truth that most men miss because they are so focused on her reaction that they forget to look inward. This was never about her, not really. It was always about you. The man who withdraws his attention from a place of genuine self-respect, not from bitterness, not from a desire to punish, not because he read a strategy online, but because he finally decided that his energy is too valuable to pour into a space that does not honor it. That man has already won something far greater than her attention. He has won himself back. When you were constantly giving, constantly initiating, constantly available, you are not just investing in her. You are slowly abandoning yourself. Every unreturned message you overlooked chipped away at your self-respect. Every one-sided effort you accepted taught you to expect less from the people around you. Every moment you stayed present for someone who was barely present for you reinforced the belief you may not have even been aware of. The belief that your value depends on someone else's willingness to see it. Going silent was not a tactic. It was a reclamation. It was the moment you looked at the dynamic with honest eyes and said, "This is not enough." Not with cruelty, not with drama, just with clarity. And in that clarity, something begins to rebuild inside you. Your sense of purpose sharpens. Your emotional energy returns to the places it was always meant to go. Your goals, your discipline, your growth, your peace. You stop measuring your worth through her responsiveness. You stop scanning for signals that she finally sees what you bring. You stop living in the gap between what you give and what you receive. And you start living in the fullness of who you are when you are not performing for anyone else's approval. This is the transformation most men never reach because they break their silence too early. They feel the discomfort of her absence and rush back to fill it. They mistake her silence for rejection instead of recognizing it as the natural consequence of a dynamic that needed to be disrupted. They return to the same pattern, hoping it will feel different this time, and it never does. The man who stays the course, who lets his silence do its work, not on her, but on himself, is the man who emerges from the other side fundamentally changed. He no longer chases because he no longer needs to. He no longer overgives because he now understands that generosity without reciprocity is not love. It is self-erasure. And here is the final truth, the one that makes all of this matter. The most attractive version of you is not the one who pursues with relentless effort. It is the one who exists in quiet, grounded wholeness with or without her. That version of you does not need to prove anything. He does not need to perform. He does not need to convince anyone of his worth. He simply lives in alignment with his own standards, and the world, including her, adjusts accordingly. You did not go silent to get her back. You went silent to get yourself back, and that is the most powerful thing a man can ever do.